Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from San Francisco. A global computer hack using a cyber weapon developed by the National Security Agency has disrupted hospitals, universities, government offices, gas stations, ATM machines, and more than 200,000 computers worldwide. And it's expected to grow worse as people return to work this morning. On Friday, the cyber attacks began to ripple through more than 150 countries, locking medical workers out of the computer systems at dozens of British and Indonesian hospitals, disrupting train schedules in Germany, preventing Chinese students from accessing their final papers, and freezing government computers from Russia's Interior Ministry to police stations in India. Experts say it's the first time a cyber weapon developed by the NSA has been stolen and released by hackers. The cyber weapon exploits weaknesses in Microsoft software. It appears the U.S. government knew for years about this weakness in the software, but only told Microsoft about the vulnerability recently, meaning Microsoft had little time to fix the problem and for software users worldwide to update their systems. The cyber weapon is transmitted by email, then encrypts a computer, locking people out of their data, then threatening to destroy it unless a ransom is paid. On Sunday, Microsoft President Brad Smith confirmed the cyber weapon used in the attack was developed by the NSA, writing, quote, "Finally, this attack provides yet another example of why the stockpiling of vulnerabilities by governments is such a problem. An equivalent scenario with conventional weapons would be the U.S. military having some of its Tomahawk missiles stolen," unquote. NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden tweeted, quote, "Despite warnings, NSA Gov built dangerous attack tools that could target Western software. Today we see the cost," unquote. On Capitol Hill, U.S. lawmakers are demanding President Trump turn over any recordings of conversations he had with fired FBI Director James Comey. The demand comes after President Trump threatened Comey in a Twitter rant on Friday, writing, quote, "James Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press," unquote. Late last week, Trump acknowledged in an NBC interview that he'd fired Comey in part over the FBI investigation into whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia to allegedly hack the 2016 election. Comey has been invited to meet with the Senate Intelligence Committee on Tuesday. Democrats have said they will not vote on a new FBI director until a special prosecutor is appointed to preside over the investigation into Trump's ties to Russia. On Sunday, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper said Trump's decision to fire Comey represents an assault on U.S. institutions.
I think in many ways our institutions are under assault, both externally, and that's the big news here is the Russian interference in our election system. And I think as well our institutions are under assault internally.
Internally from the president?
Exactly.
The New York Times reports Senate Republicans are starting to distance themselves from President Trump amid increasing frustration about the firing of James Comey. On Thursday, Maine Senator Susan Collins said, quote, "It does seem like we have an upheaval, a crisis almost every day in Washington." President Trump threatened Friday to end daily news briefings, suggesting he may simply host his own news conference every few weeks. On Twitter, Trump also acknowledged White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer and Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders have issued false statements to the press in the last week, writing, quote, "As a very active president with lots of things happening, it's not possible for my surrogates to stand at the podium with perfect accuracy," unquote. Meanwhile, lawn ornaments have begun popping up, depicting White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer hiding among the bushes, after Spicer spent several minutes attempting to hide himself in the shrubbery outside the White House while Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway were doing interviews on Tuesday about the firing of James Comey. Unnamed officials say the White House is close to finalizing an arms deal worth $100 billion with Saudi Arabia ahead of Trump's planned visit to Riyadh on Friday, the first stop on Trump's first international trip as president. After Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Trump will visit Israel and then the Vatican. North Korea launched a new ballistic missile Sunday morning. The missile flew 430 miles. North Korea says the United States military bases across the Pacific are now within striking range and that the missile is designed to carry a nuclear warhead. The test comes amidst rising tensions between North Korea and the United States, tensions that were also fueled by the U.S.'s massive spring military drills on the Korean peninsula. In a major immigrants' rights victory, Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials have granted stays of deportation to two prominent undocumented Denver residents, Jeanette Vizquera and Arturo Hernandez Garcia. Vizquera sought sanctuary in the First Unitarian Society of Denver Church shortly after Trump took office. She's one of the founders of the Metro Denver Sanctuary Coalition and was recently named one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people of 2017. This is Jeanette Vizquera speaking on Friday morning after she left the church for the first time in 86 days.
Hoy es un día especial para mí.
It's a special day for me.
Porque voy a poder celebrar el Día de las Madres con mis hijos.
Because I will be able to celebrate Mother's Day with my children.
Y mis nietos.
And my grandchildren.
Arturo Hernandez Garcia spent 9 months in the same sanctuary church 2 years ago. He was recently arrested by ICE, even though the Obama administration had told him he was not considered a priority for removal. Meanwhile, in Vermont, 23-year-old activist and dairy worker Cesar Alex Carrillo has been deported. Carrillo was arrested in March along with two other activists with the group Migrant Justice, Enrique Bacazar and Zuli Palacios. Carrillo was deported to Mexico on a so-called voluntary departure order, which will give him a better chance of being allowed to return to the U.S. to reunite with his wife and their 4-year-old daughter, Sol Marie. To see our full coverage of Jeanette Vizquera, Arturo Hernandez Garcia, and Cesar Alex Carrillo, you can go to democracynow.org. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, another immigration activist, dreamer Jessica Colotl, is fighting her possible deportation after the Trump administration revoked her DACA status, which gives her permission to live, work, and study in the United States. In 2010, while Colotl was a student at Kennesaw State University, she was arrested, jailed for 37 days, and threatened with deportation for driving without a license. After a successful campaign by her fellow students to win her freedom, she became one of the faces of the movement to pass the DREAM Act to protect undocumented students. Colotl is now working as an immigration paralegal, and she's suing to get her DACA reinstated. In Yemen, officials have declared a state of emergency in the capital Sana'a over a cholera outbreak that has already killed 115 people. Yemen's health, water, and sanitation services have been severely impacted by the ongoing U.S.-backed Saudi-led war on Yemen. This is Dr. Husseina Haddad, the director of one of the few hospitals in Sana'a that is still functioning.
This situation is very bad. The children that are suffering from cholera are countless, and there aren't enough beds. The technical know-how in the hospital is also insufficient to deal with the situation we are facing.
In Pakistan, at least 25 people were killed and 30 more were wounded in an attack targeting the convoy of a senior Pakistani politician in the southwest province of Baluchistan on Friday. ISIS claimed responsibility for the attack, but local officials have blamed local militants. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the World Health Organization says Ebola has killed at least 3 people in the past 3 weeks, raising fears of another widespread outbreak on the continent. In 2014, Ebola killed more than 11,000 people across West Africa. In northern Mexico, an activist for parents whose children have gone missing was assassinated by armed gunmen Wednesday, Mother's Day in Mexico. Miriam Rodriguez was the director of the San Fernando Collective of Missing People. Her own daughter, Karen, had gone missing in 2012. Meanwhile, in the southern state of Guerrero, a group of reporters was attacked, robbed, and threatened by a group of armed men Saturday. The attack occurred outside Iguala, where 43 students were disappeared from the Otsinapa Teachers College in 2014. The journalists who all survived the attack said the men threatened to burn them alive. In Hong Kong, 3 families who offered refuge to NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden when he was in hiding in 2013 are facing possible deportation after their asylum claims were rejected. The families are from the Philippines and Sri Lanka. Their lawyers say Hong Kong authorities intentionally targeted the three families for expedited immigration screening. And in Charlottesville, Virginia, dozens of torch-bearing white nationalists gathered Saturday for two rallies to protest plans to remove a Confederate monument. White nationalist Richard Spencer led the protesters, who chanted, "We will not be replaced." While the torch-bearing mob evoked the long, bloody history of white terrorism against African Americans, some took to Twitter to mock Spencer and the other white nationalists for using party story-style tiki torches at the rally. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're on the road in San Francisco. I'll be speaking today in Santa Cruz and in Palo Alto.